So typically I do a really bad job of introducing people when it comes to my podcast. I will not do a bad job today. Nicola Centofanti, welcome to the Blood Origins podcast.
Thanks for having me, Robbie. Pleasure to be here.
I can almost guarantee that 90% of our audience has never heard of you, maybe 99%, because I don't know how many people from South Australia listen to us. There are a few out there. I will say this, my guy, the guy that's like embraced Blood Origins in Australia for the first time is a guy called Craig Merton. Craig Merton runs a fish shop outside of Adelaide, and he's done it for
Oh,
the last
fantastic.
25 to 30 years. He won't get offended by me saying this. He's like an old curmudgeon. He just loves to hunt, and he loves to, cut fish every day. And he's actually just undergone a bunch of really bad health issues with himself and his family and whatnot. But he's on the road to recovery. And I told him, I said, you cannot leave me, bugger. I have to, because I've never met him. We've been talking to each other, FaceTiming each other for like 2.5 years. We've never met him. But
yeah,
we've got some really strong people in South Australia, you being one of them. And I got notice of you because when you look at your Instagram, you only have one pinned post on your Instagram. And the pinned post is Labor government bans bow hunting.
It's pretty shocking, isn't it?
There's so much to unpack. But let me ask this, Nicola, are you a hunter?
I'm actually not, Robbie, but my husband's family hunts.
I love it.
Yeah. And I'm a country girl. I live in the country. And so I appreciate, I've always been around, responsible gun use. And we have some wonderful areas in the Riverland and we have a huge hunting community up here. So, but yeah, no, I myself do not have a gun license, and I'm not a hunter, but I appreciate it, and I understand its importance.
I was in a commission meeting in Oregon last Friday, and they were voting on the expansion of hunting opportunities around certain animals. And one of the most controversial animals is typically a predator, black bears specifically. And when it came to voting, and there was an increase in hunt opportunities for black bears, and it came to voting, and there was a commission, six people. And just what you just said, one of the ladies on the commission said, I draw the analogy to horse meat. It was a really strange analogy, but just stick with me. We may want to close your email browser on your computer. You may not get to hear me anymore if you mute me.
Okay, now you're really getting my IT skills up. Hang on, you just
have to close out your email or something to avoid it going ding, 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 ding. You're a politician. Your email is going to be coming in,
No, they do, and they come in thick and fast, I can tell you. You're probably wondering how I even navigated Instagram, considering I have trouble closing my browser.
I was surprised. So this lady said, she uses this analogy of horse meat. She's like, people in this world eat horse meat and love it. Yeah. I don't, and I think it's gross. And it's the same thing for hunting. I'm never going to hunt. I'm never going to pick up hunting. It's not something I'll ever do. And to me, hunting a black bear is gross. And my heart is saying that this isn't something that we should be doing. But the science says opposite. And the science says that we have a flourishing population of animals and wildlife, and it's sustainable, and people harvest those animals and use those animals and eat those animals. And so by that fact, I will vote yes to the approving of regulations. Yeah, common sense, huh?
Absolutely. And I think for me as well, Robbie, it just comes down to the basic facts. I mean, I'm a member of the Liberal Party, which is like the Conservative Party.
Yeah, so explain to everyone who you are, like what you do. You are a politician in South Australia.
Yeah, I am, and I've been a politician in South Australia. So I've been a member of the Upper House, which is like the Senate here in South Australia, since 2020. So the last 4 years, in fact, came into came into the Legislative Council right in the middle of COVID, and I'm a member of the Liberal Party here in South Australia, and the Liberal Party in South Australia and indeed Australia is the more of the Conservative Party. So we're always centre right. We're a centre right party, and so for me it really comes down to the basis of individual freedom. And for me, I've always supported the rights of law-abiding citizens to hunt, to fish, and to enjoy the great outdoors. And I think there's so much to gain when people step outside into the great outdoors. We know how good it is for mental health, but particularly for men. So we know the benefits, and I think for me the problem that I had with the Labor government banning bow hunting is around the process, and happy to delve into that. But it's a really underhanded way that they are banning bow hunting here in South Australia. And I think that if we don't stand up against this, I really do think it's got the potential to be the thin edge of the wedge here in South Australia.
100%. 100%. So tell me, let me give a little bit more context to you before we delve into the whole bow hunting scenario. What made you decide that you wanted to be a politician?
Yeah, because interestingly, before I became a member of Parliament, I was actually a veterinarian for 15 years. So in a mixed
Wow.
practice, yeah, in a mixed practice. So here in the Riverland, we do production animals, small animals, basically anything that came through the door, we'd treat it. So, but I think for me, it was really the realisation, particularly working with farmers on the ground, the realisation that the decisions that were made on North Terrace, which is the terrace that our state Parliament House sits, the decisions that were made, in that Parliament on North Terrace actually have a real impact on the farmers on the ground. And so for me, it was born out of a bit of a frustration of some of the stuff that I was seeing coming out of North Terrace and the impact that was happening practically on the ground for farmers. So, joined the Liberal Party, and then someone asks you to chair a committee, and then you get asked to chair another one. And then you get asked to lead the state country Liberals, and then you get asked to lead the federal country Liberals, and it kind of goes on from there. And then there was a casual vacancy that was that arose, and I thought, well, you only get these opportunities, I think, once in a lifetime. And I'll always be a vet first and foremost. When people say, "What do you do?" I say, "Well, I'm a veterinarian. I'm just spending a little bit of time in Parliament." Representing the people. So I'll always be a vet, and it's an incredibly privileged place to be, Parliament, to be able to be a representative, and to be a voice for the people, and to try and do some good work whilst being there. So that's how I came into the Legislative Council some 4 years ago.
So go through your resume right now, because you have a number of things that you are, right? And I think that and I need you to explain those things, because people aren't going to understand them, because the system is different. The Australian system is very much the Canadian system, is very much the UK system. I noticed you have the shadow minister in your portfolio. Let's just go through those things and sort of explain them.
Yeah, so look, we are not in government here in South Australia. So the Liberals aren't in government. Labor, who's the opposing
You don't
party,
have majority, is what
no,
you're
we
saying,
don't.
right?
Exactly,
Correct. All
exactly.
right.
We do not have a majority of the parliament. So, and hence the term shadow minister. So I'm hoping and working hard every single day to ensure that we've got a state election that's coming up in 2026. So my job's to work really hard to not only just hold the government that do have the majority in the House at the moment to account, but to really work hard and provide a sort of a raft of policies that really set the future for South Australia, so that people are choosing to vote Liberal at the next election in 2026, so that we can get into government and govern. So, those people that have the majority, they are the ministers. So that's the Labor government. They've got the
And you're the
ministers,
shadow minister of
and I'm
what?
shadow. So, shadow minister of primary industries and regional South Australia. So, when we think of primary industries, we're thinking of agriculture, we're thinking of horticulture, we're thinking of fisheries, and we're thinking of forestry. Basically the backbone of the South Australian economy, which is why I love this portfolio, and the region. So being a country girl, I live out in the country, and I love representing country South Australia. So and that being a shadow minister for regional South Australia is actually quite nice, because it allows me to kind of delve over a number of kind of other portfolios, whether it be kind of health, infrastructure, roads, hospitals, schools, in our regions. So I'm in charge of sort of bringing that all together under Regional South Australia. And then I'm the Shadow Minister for Water Resources and the River Murray. So we have this gorgeous big river that runs through South Australia and, parts of Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria. It's called the Murray River. It's a beautiful river. It provides us, with not just a wonderful place to get out on the weekends and fish. It's a wonderful it's a wonderful environment for tourism, but also as well, obviously, it provides water for us, for our
Yeah, for sure.
for irrigation, for crop production. So it ties in really nicely with the primary industry side of things. And I'm also a recent addition. As of a couple of weeks ago, we had a little bit of a change in our sort of shadow cabinet team. I've got veteran affairs as well, so which I'm really proud and excited to have.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Who
my husband.
shadows Susan Close?
Well, I do to a certain extent, not on, and but weirdly not on actually the animal welfare, the environment, and the animal welfare side of things. I shadow her for the water, but this is something I just feel really passionate about, and I just again, my drive for this is because I'm really concerned that what they're doing is impacting on people's rights and freedoms,
Yeah,
and that's what
100%.
boils down to.
Well, and look, one of the things that I asked you before we got on here is whether or not you had heard of us, Blood Origins, and you said you had, which is humbling, amazing. I'm a scientist, and when I hear someone like Susan Close say, and Humane Society or RSPCA say that bow hunting is unethical and inhumane, I'm like, okay, well, here, let me give you the science. Let me give you the engineering that's going into bows. Let me give you the engineering that's going into arrows, the engineering that's going into arrowheads. All of that points to a human that wants to be more effective, which means he wants to be more, or she wants to be more lethal.
Yeah.
Why does a bow hunter practice and practice and practice and practice and practice? It's not to be unethical.
No.
It's the exact opposite.
Exactly.
It's to be as ethical as possible.
Yeah. And ensure
So there's
that
all these things that
Yeah.
the rhetoric that is being put across around the reason for bow hunting to be removed and the imagery that they're using. Number one, it's not bow hunters. And Georgie Purcell in Victoria just picked it all up as well.
Yeah.
It's not bow hunters doing this.
No.
It's denigrated youth that think it's a laugh to put a target archery arrow into a cockatoo or into a kookaburra or into a wallaby and think it's hysterical.
Yeah.
Hunters don't do that.
And that's the disappointing thing, Robbie, is that you're absolutely right. And it's the bow hunting community that are being punished for something that they don't have anything to do with and cannot control. And I think, the problem is, again, to your point, these decisions are being based on emotion and ideology rather than science. And that's incredibly disappointing. I mean, the minister, so Susan Close, will come out and say, well, this is an election commitment.
Was it?
No one can find any documentation in terms of that election commitment, and the only rhetoric that I've heard is that there was a potential deal that was done with the Animal Justice Party, behind closed doors, so certainly not public. So I'm not sure you can call that an election commitment.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been an election commitment to a small proportion of individuals, again behind closed doors, but that's not what we term an election commitment. So, really frustrating. And I think, really, I think the bow hunting community have the absolute right, and the hunting community more broadly have the absolute right to be infuriated with the government on this, because not only is she banning it, she's using a route called which means that she's banning it without bringing it to Parliament.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about where we are right now with this whole ban. So number one, I want to understand that. I want to understand, why is this not being brought forward to discuss in the Parliament, to be like, everyone discuss it. Okay, now everyone vote on it. Is this something we want or we don't want? Why is that not happening?
I suspect because she knows that there's going to be a lot of pushback, within the parliamentary system, and so the way that she's doing it is by what we call proclamation, which is basically she writes to the governor, and they and that is how the law is changed, as opposed to through a piece of legislation or another thing called a regulation, both of which has to come through the parliamentary system. It has to go through Parliament, and it gives an opportunity, like myself and my colleagues, if we don't agree, to do something about it. Now, so because she's going down the route of proclamation, it means that there is nothing that we as a parliament can do to try and block this ban. And that is, I think, the most alarming
Can anything
piece of
be
news
run through proclamation, Nicola?
No.
Was it being added onto something else that allows it as a proclamation?
My understanding is it's being added on. So no, you can't change any piece of legislation through proclamation. But there are different tools that you can use, I guess. And I think my point is, no matter, whether a tool is at your disposal, as a minister, you've got to ask yourself whether that's democratic.
Right.
And I fundamentally believe that, what Susan Close is doing is undemocratic.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and, and again, I think there's a real concern amongst hunters, and even fishers that and I made the point before that this is the thin edge of the wedge, and that this is being used as a start of the process, potentially restricting the rights of law-abiding citizens. And, I think that that's what we need to be really concerned about here. It's bow hunting today. What'll it be
What is it tomorrow?
tomorrow?
Right.
We know that Susan Close doesn't agree with duck hunting. Is it going to be duck hunting tomorrow? Will it be fishing the next day? And I think that certainly, yeah, I know many people in the hunting community and the recreational fishing community are really concerned as to where this is going to go into the future, and I think they've got a right to be concerned. So I'm calling on, as best I can, the government to actually have a think about what they're doing, have a think about the process, and to reverse their ban.
So let me ask this question: I got a couple of questions. Is a proclamation as strong as a regulation or parliamentary vote law kind of scenario? I.e., I'm asking,
It's still law. It's
but
still law.
in my brain, and maybe some explanation. You get into, Liberal Party comes into power in 2026. Can the proclamation be reversed?
Yes, it can. But if we've got majority of the House as well, then pieces of legislation and regulation can also be reversed. But yes, I mean, a proclamation that's made is it's made by the minister of the day. So yes, technically that is the
Technically,
minister's
another
power.
minister
Yeah,
could do another proclamation that unbans bow hunting.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right now, where do we stand? Is it banned?
So
Do we still have a glimmer of hope? Like, where are we?
the ban is not in currently. So my understanding is the ban comes in the 1st of December this year. So currently we've got there's a petition online
Yep.
that's been started, and I believe that there's over 8,000 signatures on that petition to date. And if you want, I can give you the I've got it here handy with me, the petition address, which is https not semicolon. What's the other one with the two dots?
Colon.
Colon. Thank you. / handsoff.au.
Yep. Handsoff.au.
Yeah, handsoff.au. And I would encourage everyone to go online and sign that petition. I'm also encouraging particularly the local guys to write to their local members of parliament to really communicate with them their displeasure about not only the ban but the way that the ban's been done. And I think also working with groups. I mean, there's some great groups that we've got: Conservation Hunting Alliance of South Australia, CHASA. We've got the Australian Bowhunters Association as well. They're doing some really good work in this space.
Yep.
In fact,
both of them.
Those groups are, and people even like Recfish are coming on board as well in terms of getting the message out. There is a campaign that these groups are running, and in fact, that was the campaign that I shared on my Instagram.
Hands off with the big red hand. Hands off. That's right. That's
and
right.
we So really supporting those groups, encouraging everyone to like and to share that message far and wide, and then asking people to put as much pressure on the Premier, Peter Malinauskas, in our state to say, again, hands off. Let us do what we've been doing responsibly for years and years and years.
So he hasn't signed it yet, has he?
The petition.
No, the proclamation.
Well, he doesn't necessarily. My understanding is he doesn't necessarily need to sign it because it's the governor. Which is obviously.
Has the governor signed it?
I believe so. My understanding is it's coming in. Now, that's not to say that it can't be undone.
Sure.
But it is coming in as of the 1st of December. So people in the industry have been informed that this is coming as of the 1st of December. So, time is ticking. Can I also just make the point as well, Robbie? I think it's really important to note that there was actually a parliamentary inquiry into this in 2021. Yeah, so the Parliament actually looked at bow hunting in depth, and that committee put forward 12 recommendations, and not one of them was about banning bow hunting. In fact, none of them were about significant legislative change. It was more about more policy. There were
education.
Yep.
Yeah, education awareness, like making sure
Absolutely.
you're being more ethical, all of those kinds of things.
And the use of bringing in the use of a permit as well, so having to go through some education and training, because we know, how much training. You said, we spoke about that previously, how much training bow hunters do, how much practice they do, really just going through mandating a training program so that people who are using bow hunting crossbows or bows,
Sure.
know how to do it effectively and safely. So there were a number of those sorts of recommendations. I think also as well, the other one to note, one of the other recommendations was really tightening the laws around how you can buy them, because at the moment you can just get them off the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's actually where we're seeing a lot of the issues come from. Is it's not, like, to your point, it's not the bow hunting community that are out there responsibly practicing, etc. It's these guys that are, getting on the internet, buying them not necessarily legally, and then
they're probably not buying the right equipment. It's probably not the right poundage, not the right weight. They don't know what they're doing.
They've got absolutely no idea.
Yeah,
exactly. So there was some recommendations around how can we tighten that up as well. So, but the ministers ignored all of those recommendations, ignored the recommendations of that parliamentary committee, which, by the way, took several months to listen to witnesses, to provide the report, to make those set of recommendations. I think it really is outrageous that the minister, that Susan Close, has just ignored all of that.
Well, it sounds
evidence.
like she's ignored the inquiry. She's ignored all of that, as you said, professional testimony.
Yep.
And she's ignoring, books and books and books of science to cater to a single voice or a single lobby that's tied to, again, I don't know what it's tied to. It may have been tied to the majority that they got, and as you said, closed door negotiations to say, well, you scratch my back, you need to scratch my back like this because this is what we want.
Exactly. And I think I think the other thing to note as well, again, when we're talking about emotion, ideology versus, the science. I mean, the minister herself has said on radio that there's more humane ways of killing feral animals like poisoning. Now, I've been a vet for, prior to going into Parliament, as I said, for 15 years, and I've seen a hell of a lot of poisonings in my time, and they are not humane. The majority of them, not all, but the majority of them can be, the animal can obviously go through a fair bit of suffering. So, these sorts of broad blanket statements from the minister, from Susan Close, I think, are really concerning. So I think that there is too much emphasis on activism and not enough emphasis on science.
Well
and
said.
that's where we're at.
Well said. Well said. Well, I know that we just met, but I did do a bunch of Google stalking around you before I got you on this podcast. And we're big fans of you. We're big fans of what you stand for. And please don't hesitate to, reach out to me if we can do anything for you. If we can be
Thanks,
of
Robbie.
help, if we can be of service, we'd love to help.
Thanks, Robbie. Look, and I think you already are by, having me on your show or on your podcast, by sharing this widely. I think, we've just got to get the message out that what they're doing in South Australia is not okay. And yeah, as a broader hunting community, because this isn't just about the bow hunters. This is about the broader hunting community. We've got to stand as one and fight against it. Thanks for having 100%.
Me. Well said. It was my pleasure. All right, stay right there. You've actually got a little bit of time to spend in front of your computer.